This is Call with Dads, where we dive into the ups, downs, and everything in between when it comes to being a dad. Here, it's all about connecting with a community of dads who are committed to learning and leveling up as fathers. Welcome to Call with Dads. Let's talk.
So yeah, let's jump into the
Right.
failure and
Hmm.
discuss what's there because, or not failures.
Yeah,
This
what
one's
was the topic this
forgiveness.
time? Oh, forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things I was thinking about with this topic, and I
Hmm.
don't know if I'm gonna go off on a tangent, but one is kind of, you know, I thought about like the old saying, a father may forgive, but he never forgets.
Right.
And so I thought about the fact of, to me, it's crazy that we have all these things that we have going on. Like my biological father, I've forgiven him and got over all the things that kind of he's done. The
Hmm.
and to be honest with you, it's not like he ever really hit me. It's not like he
Yeah.
was ever really. He was just kind of not there, didn't care, made it very clear that his his way of thinking was that I was there only to make him look as good as possible, you know.
Hmm. Right.
So it's not like it was a real built up anger or whatever. That wasn't the case, but there was resentment, I guess is the best way of saying it. And then of course his side of the family treated me like crap, and it was kind of it was kind of that whole you build up a resentment from them,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know. But on top of that, it's also like I have a close friend or a friend that was real close and killed myself to try to make him be able to pick himself back up, do better. I mentioned him before on the show.
Yeah, I think so.
And, you know, after finding out that like he was drinking, but I didn't realize he had a horrible drinking problem. And he just burned his bridges with me. He basically did all these things to make it seem like he told people that things about me, blah blah blah, right? And mind you, this has been 9 years ago, and there's a difference between forgiving a friend and forgiving family, but still, where my mind kind of going is like I forgave my father, I've forgiven my friend, but I have no interest really, or not even actively working to try to find them and reconnect with them. That's not something that I'm looking at because there's sometimes you're just like, you screwed me over. You did this, you did that. Okay. It's in the past. I've gotten over it. I mean, I'm sure you've had these situations. Obviously, you've had,
Hmm.
but with you, it sounds like you've had a much more, as you've said it, dysfunctional kind of setup with your family. How did
Yeah.
Have you gotten to the point where you've been able to forgive them but not reconnect, or what's your thoughts on that kind of situation?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so when I originally started coming into adulthood, I kind of had like a negative outlook towards my father, and more so like why, I just never understood why he was never around. He wasn't there. Why did he live so far away from me? Why did he really never put any effort into being my dad or being there all the time, going to school plays or like spelling bees or really taking an interest in me as a teenager. to become, in high school and stuff like that, teaching me about girls and all these things. Um, I never really, I just, at the time, I thought it was bad. You want me to pause?
Right. I'm still here. Sorry. I'll
Okay,
cut.
no.
I had to fix the audio.
We can cut that part
Or,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. At the time, I kind of just didn't really understand the whole concept of what was going on. Um, so I really kind of was angry towards them. Didn't really want a whole lot to do with them. Not there. It just was a lot of negative outlook. It was kind of how I really come to realize who my mother was and what happened and all the situations that went through, especially now with my own kid and me and my wife. I mean, me and my wife are wonderful. There's no issues there, but I can see where those disconnections can happen. Where this decision is what I want, but this decision is what she wants, and these two decisions don't match. You know what I mean? So I understand where that kind of came from on his part, and I also now learned a lot about my mother. Now she's in prison, she's nuts, and she's a psychopath. I learned all of these things and a lot of all the reasons why my dad wasn't around and the reasons why he didn't really take an interest was not because he didn't want to, is because he couldn't. He tried. He was
Mm-hmm.
always trying. I mean, every chance he got to, he came up and he visited. He did every opportunity. I learned this that he only came up every few months to visit me up where I lived because I lived up in like northern West Palm Beach and he lived all the way in like southern Fort Lauderdale, Broward County. So it's about a 2 hour drive from each other. So he would
Which is
come
a
up
task.
every few months. I mean, my mother would drive me down every month, once a weekend, but he would come up to visit me every couple of months. And I soon realized that it wasn't because he didn't want to, or it was because he wasn't allowed. If he
Right.
did, my mother would have him arrested or whatever the case was. You know what I mean? And over the years, I kind of figured out. I thought, well, Why would she have him arrested for coming and visiting? So he must be some sort of bad guy or criminal or something like that. And I soon realized, no, she was the criminal. She just didn't want him seeing what she was doing or where she was going or how she was handling things. She wanted his entire influences out of it, period. Just because she knew once his influence got in there that we would see how bad she was. And over time, as we got older, that's kind of what happened. We eventually seen how bad she was. And my brother basically ostracized her. I He has a little bit more trouble than me, ostracizing her, but me, I'm like, get, scat doggy. I didn't want anything to do with her. The moment I started seeing all the bad things she was doing, man, I booted her to the curb and never talked to her again. Um, and over the years, she tried and tried and tried this, tried that. She did all kinds of stuff. I used uh, my powers to be, I would say, I called them, um, my to kind of hide my identity and hide a lot of stuff from
Mm-hmm.
her. That's one of the reasons why I hid my identity in the beginning, but not the total reason. The main reason, obviously, was the military stuff, but
Right.
that was added in. That's probably about 10%. Um, but so over the years in figuring all this out, this is where I learned to forgive my dad for all of those things, but not because he did them. It was more, I guess it was more so forgiving myself for not understanding. I mean, I never understood what he was going through in order to just simply get on with life. Because at the same time, he still has to have his own life. I mean, he's a grown adult. He has to have money. He has to live. He has parents, and he has I think he remarried after a while, you know what I mean? So he had a wife and so on and so forth. So he still had to live his life at the same time, try to balance us, and hopefully we don't hate him. Which,
Right.
now obviously I don't hate him, but we have a pretty good relationship. I wish he would be on the phone a little bit more often, but he's a dad and a son. It's 40-year-old son. What are you going to talk about? Fuck you, dad. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's about all there really is to say to your dad. When you're 40 years old.
Right. And that's the thing is
Mm,
it's literally a whole issue of, and for you it kind of sounds like your mom, you ended up like your dad, you had the anguish with the all
mm,
the issues, and et cetera, et cetera. But your dad was more, you had the anger towards him,
mm,
and you realized, okay, so you forgave your dad,
mm.
but you were able to reconnect with him and build that back up, which was
Yeah.
kind of a good thing there
Yeah,
because
I mean, we essentially we realized what was going on. So it wasn't my dad. So when we were younger, we thought it was my dad. We thought my dad was the bad guy. We thought my it's the same thing with my stepdad.
right,
And we'll get to that in a second. But for a while, I thought my dad was the one who didn't want to see me. I thought my
right,
dad was the one who didn't want to be there, didn't want to come to my high school this or my middle school that or soccer game after class. He didn't want to help me with my homework. He didn't want anything to do with me. And that's what I thought for all these
right,
years. But all these years after all these years I soon realized that wasn't the case. He actually did want all that stuff and he wanted to be there. He wanted to be there so much so that it almost like, killed him because it was so heavy on him, and it was all due to my mother. My mother
right.
basically wanted to use him. And maybe my mother had uh, good, thoughts or whatever in the beginning when they first got married and first had kids, whatever.
Right.
And having kids does screw with women's head, hormones
Yeah.
imbalance, whatever else. So maybe that's what caused her to go off the rails. That's very possible. But yeah, but after the kids and all that stuff, you know, I mean, she went off the rails, and she was the cause of it all. He wasn't a bad guy. I learned all the stuff, all the deep dark secrets that he supposedly had all these years. My dad smoked pot, did a little bit of the old yayo when he was younger. So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
You know
I
who
mean,
these days? I mean, that's like 65% of the population. So it was kind of like whoopity doo, whatever. So
right.
and not to mention all of that stuff was done for by the time we were, around. So, he did all that stuff younger. So she used that information to martyr him, basically, essentially, make him out to be a bad guy. That way she could keep us. And then she would always say, he doesn't pay child support. I remember this distinctly. He never pays his child support. I never even call back from him. BS, because he always did. He paid every
Right.
month for 20 years because my brother was 2 years older than me. So now 18 for me and two more, 18 for him and then two more to finish me out. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I think that's they're now referring to that as like parent alienation,
hmm
where one parent's trying to make the other parent turn
yeah,
against.
right.
And
And that's exactly what happened. My mother was, I mean, it's clear as day. You meet her today, and like if it's like if you were to see her today, it would be like watching a Netflix series. Like like her, I think I saw her. Man, I don't remember. Probably the last time I saw any information on her was like 6 months ago. Um, and like she looked like that Netflix series of that lady that like murdered a bunch of people. Her like hair's all like
oh jeez.
crazy, like psychopath. Her eyes are like, and she's
Oh
she's all like
jeez.
skinny here, but like fat here and weird here, and her neck's all like messed up, and she's all like, "Ah," like a demon, like a demon. You know what I mean? So it's like crazy looking. It's super weird. Like how like it just makes you realize, evil really does take a hold over time. You know what I mean? And it did in
Oh,
her case. It took a
it
hold of her.
does.
It controlled her for all of those years.
Oh, I believe that. And so now here's kind of my curiosity. So, like for you, you talked about like your dad, you had anger, you forgave him, you reconnected, etc., etc.
Mhm.
We'll probably talk about your stepdad in a little bit. And like luckily on my side, my stepdad and I had a good relationship. I didn't feel like there was a big concern there that is going to be
Yeah.
something. But with you, you're with your mom, like you can still tell there's some anger, I think you would say, or something
Hmm.
like that. But
Oh yeah.
with with your mom, have you really forgiven her for what she's done, or is it more you still hold that anger, but you don't really focus much on it, or what do you do with that?
Hmm.
Because, like I said, it sounds like you have the anger in your voice about her, which is, from what you tell me about her and the things you've said, it makes perfect sense. But
Oh yeah.
the
So
conversation about forgiveness and such and all,
so my thoughts on my mother, I guess that it's weird because they're complicated.
yeah,
So my mother, and in I would say in the last like 4 or 5 years is more so when I got like more, I guess, spiritual,
right.
kind of developed more into like God and stuff like that. So I would say nowadays I don't. My mother is still alive. She's physically still there, but
Right.
I don't believe my mom is alive. I believe my
Mentally and
mom.
soul.
Yeah, I believe my mother, the original woman, is no longer in that body, and it is now like a demon or whatever is there is something that has kind of encompassed her physical form. Because I've talked to her a couple
Mm-hmm.
of times in the last couple of years, and in the process of that, she her her tone of voice isn't the same. She doesn't talk to me like she knows me. She talks to me like she has to.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to her, it's like there's nothing there. It's like right through. You know what I mean? There's no soul. There's no physical being or no mental, spiritual being there. There's nothing there. She it's
Right.
just when you talk to her and you look into her eyes, you just see nothing but evil, just pure evil. Um, so I would say that as far that's why I said it's complicated because in a way I have forgiven my mother and the things that she has done. Like you said, I'll never forget, and I'll never allow that woman anywhere near me or my family as long as her physical body embodiment is still on this earth. She will never have any sort of contact with me physically, phone, computer, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Right.
We even have injunctions on her in the court here. Um, so she will never come around me and my family ever again until she dies.
All right.
Um, and honestly, uh, I guess just like Marilyn Manson said, I'll go to her funeral, but I'll go there just to make sure she's dead. Like,
I understand.
I'm not going there to mourn her. I'm going to go there to make sure that woman is finally dead. um,
I understand that too.
yeah, but I mean, she just, she's just done so many evil things, with as far as like alienating my father, um, alienating my stepfather, what she did to him and treated him the way she did, as well as even after. I think she got her worst after. Um, there was some things we found out that she created like a couple of LLCs, and then she like would start.
Or let me go to full screen. All right. So it looks like that's good. All right. I'm gonna have to cut out his show. I can see it's picking up on the background. So yeah, you were going in, you just talked about your mom was doing veterans, so I need to
Yeah,
minimize.
we can splice that in.
Yeah.
So, so what she was doing is she was uh, like pretending that she was some sort of like nurse or whatever, or elderly care nurse or whatever. Um, and she was pretending to be that, and she would get these guys that are elderly veterans, and she would do the care stuff for them, but she had this like official form made that she made, and she was good at this, and they would fill it out, you know what I mean, and she would pretend like she's applying for benefits for them. Well, after a month or so of doing all this for this guy, she had that form, and it had like social bank account numbers, all this stuff, and she would clean them out. You know what I mean? Just everything, take everything from them, and then that's why she's in prison. You know what I mean?
Right.
Prior to that, she was doing it to a couple other people, but not with the business, not with the faux LLC. She just did it randomly, basically. She
Oh,
tried doing it to me. She ruined my credit a couple times, and I got it fixed. Um, but I'm pretty sure one of the reasons why she got caught is because we think we don't. I think they're still investigating it, but I'm pretty sure she killed a dude, like OD'd him with a bunch of like medicine, and
oh,
then took like
jeez.
everything he owned. You know what I mean? Stole like everything. And she just kept doing it for years and years and years. Um, if we were to cup there, because in her presence, there's two people that we know of that died, and in the process, somehow she managed to be on the will or get some of his stuff somehow.
Oh,
Um,
that's crazy.
right. So we think, and we think they're still investigating a lot of that stuff, but we think that's part of the reason why they nabbed her or caught her, and they put her in jail for the few things that they had on her, and while she's in jail, she's being investigated for more, because that's partly what happened. She went to jail, and her first initial was like a year. Um, and then after, like, towards the end of her year, they resentenced her because they found more, and she got like a couple more years. And that's where she's at now. Um, I don't know when she's due to get out or whatever, but I would assume that they're going to find more, reinvestigate, and extend her sentence out even further. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like that. That's why it makes me believe all of those things connected. Make me believe that my mother, the woman that was there when I was a kid and gave birth to me and my brother and my sister and all that stuff, she's not there anymore. She's gone. She's dead. Like,
Right.
I think whatever took over her body killed her or sent her somewhere else, and that person has taken over, or that demon or demonic entity has taken over her soul and physical, or not her soul, but her physical being. You know what I mean? It
Right.
sounds weird, but if you've seen stuff that I've seen through her and how she's acted, and her personality changes, and even things like voice changing, you know what I mean, everything, all of these
Yeah.
things, if you've seen this stuff, you would probably think the same. Like, you'd be like, oh, this isn't the same person. It's weird. So
Yeah. And, something like that, it's one of those things that you kind of you sit there and you say, okay, well, at least in my mind,
mm,
is this is yeah, like you said, they will never be around my family by any
yeah,
way. And it's I personally can't imagine having that kind of situations and events. That just
mm,
sounds all weird to me. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong, but the I don't see how like I don't see how that could be forgiven in the sense of I can see how you can let it go to where it's not in your life, but like just
Right.
knowing that kind of person because that's the
Yeah.
one thing is we all talk like there's a guy on Truth Social who posted about he has two grown kids. They don't talk to him. They disowned him, what's have you. So the one thing that kind of gets me is that having having this guy that talked on Truth Social about his two grown kids disowning him, et cetera, et cetera. And I think about my first mind came to like, and I don't know his situation. I just
Mm.
talked to him yesterday on our fatherhood support.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I've forgiven my father, but because of his way of thinking, the way that, and I mentioned it was always more, he wanted to be more manipulative. He wanted to be more look at me, or everything had to be focused on him and his world. So to me, that was kind of like I just felt more as a pawn to his.
Mm.
And there's pictures of me as a little kid, probably close to my son's age, trying to hug on him and show all these emotions and such towards him. And looking back now, it feels more like I was more of a, oh, look at me, or
Yeah.
because I know if my son was out doing something, I'd be like, okay, where's he at? Where I know my biological was, oh, who cares? Which brings up a whole nother topic that we're going to discuss at another time. But
Yeah.
the um the fact is talking about like you had you were dis you disowned your father because of things your mom said, et cetera, et cetera. My stepdad was constantly pushing me to try to have a relationship with my real dad. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where the difference with our backgrounds goes is
Hmm.
my stepdad really wanted it. And after my stepdad passed, I was not willing to keep having that relationship because everything in the past, the fact of everything I knew, I caught him lying to me on many occasions.
Hmm.
He
Right.
tried he tried to, even when I caught him lying, he would try to talk his way out of it. Like I remember he called me with a what I assume is still called a blunt, a cigar full of weed, and he
Yeah, but
basic he basically was lecturing me, and this was when I was a teenager, lecturing me about drug use and all this, and I'm like, have you ever done this? He's like, well, no, and I'm like, that's funny. I
yeah,
said,
this
because
is
when your friends come over and get drunk, they talk about how high you used to get and on what
Mhm.
drugs you used to get. I said, because weed is the most mild thing that you possibly would have even had in your vicinity, let alone what was in your body. I
Right.
said, weed is the worst thing I do. I said, so you have no place to lecture me. I
Mm.
said, if you want me to believe anything you say, lying to me, he goes, oh, well, they're drinking, they don't know. I'm like, okay, well, my mom talked about how you used to spread cocaine across the table at our house in the country before you guys got divorced because you were an SOB.
Mhm.
You know, these things here. So, it again, I don't know what this guy's whole situation is and such, but if it's like what your mom did, where she's talking down to making it so the kids don't want to be around them,
Mhm.
then I don't know what to tell this guy to kind of deal with that. But If it's a
Right.
situation like my side where it was just one thing after another thing, and I was basically a pawn, I was lied to, I was more
Hmm.
decremental, whatever the word is. I
Yeah.
was, I can forgive him for what he did. It's who he is. It's just
Yeah.
who he is and what he does. I can't
Right.
change that. And I don't at this point think it was personal. I could have been anyway. I could have been the perfect child. I definitely was not the perfect child. But no matter what I did, he would have still been the same person he was.
Right.
For you, you found out the truth that your father wasn't that. So for you,
Yeah.
forgiving him and reconnecting him was a much easier process.
Yeah, it was a much easier thing to do because I mean, it more so just happened naturally. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
over time, just kind of figured out. Oh crap! Well, that none of that was true, or none of that was true, and then I went over there. And me and my father never really disconnected from each other originally in the beginning. We never we always had a relationship from the beginning, from young kid all the way up until now. We've never
Right.
actually been disconnected from each other. It's just during a certain period of my younger years, I always had a negative outlook towards him. I was like, this guy, you know what I mean? Whatever. I guess I got to spend time with him, so I would. You know what I mean? Stuff
Right.
like that. That's more so how it was. Just always thought down of him, thought less of him, never really understood who he really was. And just over time is kind of where that came into play. For for me, if I was in a different situation, and if I what I would say to somebody would be to just I would say talk to him.
Mm.
It's worth
Yeah, I
it.
mean,
You know what I mean? Because even in the talking to the person, if you talk to the guy, if he is the way he is, at our age, we'll be able to tell. You
right.
can tell. There's he was the cause. He's the reason. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
but
it's if you talk to him and he's totally different, much better person, he'll either A, come out and be like, I know I was terrible, I'm sorry. Or
yeah,
B, he'll be like, yeah, none of that was true. I wish I tried to help you and talk to you, but I couldn't, and your mom wouldn't let me. You know what I mean? So I would
yeah,
say that there's always for other people, if there's people listening and they're in similar situations, a conversation is always worth it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Forgive the person for the past, start fresh, have a conversation. You never know. You know what I
right.
mean? So that's kind of something that is kind of what happened to me in learning more about my stepdad. My stepdad was always throughout my whole life. My stepfather was very cold, um, ruthless, very very strict. And I think I've mentioned before, he was a one and done person. He said something one time. That was it. He never said it again. He said, "Don't do that ever again."
Right.
And that was it. I mean, it could be like 35 years later. And if I did it again, I'd get my butt whooped. You know what I mean? I said,
Hmm.
don't do that 35 years ago on January 21st. Remember?
Right.
That's how he was. He was consistent. He knew what he was saying. And he was very strict. He was very stern. And I would say, he was very, truthful and honest to himself and to everyone around him all the time. So much so it was like he knew everything he said. You know what I mean? He never BS'd anybody ever. It was
Right.
so strict. He was so strict about that he was capable of remembering what he said 25 years later. You know what I mean? So that's how that was. So he would say, hey, no, I mean, you can't do that. And now if I did it 3 years later, butt whooped. It was just that simple. So over the years, I always thought, or I never understood why he was so cold and so strict, and I never understood why he would always argue with our mother. Like him, he was married to my mom for I think 25 years. You know what I mean? I think I was about 27, 28 when they finally got the divorce done. I mean, they were done after about 20 years, but it was 5 years for the divorce, whatever. I think she was in and out of jail, stuff like that. So it took a lot of work to get the actual divorce going. But they were
Right.
married for like 21 or 20, 21 years. Um, and all of the years, I never realized a lot of the stuff that he did. So one of the things that he did, obviously, me and my brother, my sister is his kid, but me and my
Mm.
brother are not. So
Right.
somewhere along the lines, no matter who you are, if you have these kids and they're brats, which all kids are, and
Right.
then you have a woman that is like
Not mentally
nuts and
there.
you're having problems with, you're going to have some sort of negative reaction to those children. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially if they're brats. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a natural reaction, and I think part of that took play. So a lot of that is stuff that I recognize now, and it made me, kind of forgive him on that stuff. And then some of the other stuff that I recognize is a lot of the stuff that he did. Um, he like I essentially I recognize that he took I guess it's hard to explain. I guess he took or absorbed all the bad, knowing that my mother was bad. And us kids, and this is after he had a kid with her. He had a kid with her, so we had three kids, and I think somewhere in those years, he kind of realized that us three kids are kind of stuck with this monster, this
Mm-hmm.
person that's clearly a monster. Something is, it's not the woman I married. Something's wrong with her. She's going nuts. Because all of the stuff that she did later on in the years started when they were young and married. So, in a weird way, I think my stepfather almost acted as like a saint to
Mm-hmm.
protect us, us kids. Um, in one way, as in, most kids don't want to know that their mother was a scumbag, psychopath,
Right.
murderer, criminal, whatever the case is. Most children don't want to know that. When you become an adult, fine, whatever. You're grown up, get over it.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you don't want to know that. And I think a lot of that stuff was happening when we were young, and my stepdad basically would shield us from that information, or her, maybe because her like psycho rants or her like mental spells or whatever case she had, and he would essentially overpower her
Mm-hmm.
by having a worse one, or getting us kids in trouble and sending us to our room, and whoop our ass, send us to the room, get out of here kids, stuff like that. And he would do
Right.
these things to get us out of this get us out of the situation, in whatever situation that was. And
Right.
I think that is a lot of what was happening. Um, so like to this day, I haven't talked to my stepdad in a few years. But that's, I'll get into that in a second. But that's I think that is part of the reason why I had so much resentment towards my stepdad, and I think my brother did. My brother and him, my brother went on at about 15 years old. Him and my brother got into like multiple fights, and then eventually got into a real big one, big nasty one. My stepdad never punched him, but he whooped his ass. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a dad should. And my stepdad, or my brother fought back or whatever. And then after that, my brother went on and started getting into like oxycodones and oxycontin and
Mm-hmm.
heroin and so on and so forth. And he went on and did drugs, and we didn't see him for about 10 years.
Uh,
Um, yeah, we eventually got him back. Uh, he's good now. He's married. He's kids. He lives out in
oh,
the middle of
good.
the woods. Lives a wonderful life. Goes to church. Has rides four wheelers and does stupid shit. So me.
Right.
But yeah, I mean he's good now. But I think all of that is what affected him. So much. But I think my brother has forgiven him for all the stuff that happened to him, that them two fighting and stuff like that. And same with me over the years, because it took me to realize that he wasn't doing it to hurt us. He wasn't so strict on us just to be mean.
Right.
He didn't whoop our ass just to whoop our ass. He didn't, it's like I spill a drink and he would whoop my ass. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
like, you know, I went outside and set the front bushes on fire. That was a real thing. I did that. I actually went outside in my front yard and
Right.
set the bushes on fire. I thought it was funny. I made a little fire and I, rubbed sticks together and I thought I was cool. Thought I was in, what was that thing when you're a kid?
Boy Scout or
Yeah,
something.
I pretended I was in Boy Scouts and whatever, and I rubbed sticks together and I made a fire and this thing, but the fire caught the bushes and the bushes caught on fire and you know, I got my ass beat, So, but that was to be expected. Now I look back at that and go, oh, yeah, supposed to, what is he supposed to do? That's okay. That's no. You should get your butt beat for that. So that's kind of what happened. But there was other instances where we didn't really do a whole lot. You know what I mean? And we wondered why we got our butt whooped and we got sent to the room for no reason. And now I look back and I realize just over the years, I think we kind of recognized what was going on. I think
Right.
he was basically shielding us from our mother essentially. And without block, without doing what he shouldn't be doing. I mean, 'cause is it really up to him? He's not our dad. Is it really up to him to be taking our mother away and blocking us from her? But at the same time, he had to basically protect us from her. So he kind of balanced that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and that's over the years. That's kind of where I've kind of developed um, kind of this mindset of him. Like I feel like he acted as like a saint basically. Like he protected us, and he didn't do it for like a few months. He did it for 20 years. You know what I mean?
So
He
let me ask you this. I know you
sacrificed
said,
20 years of his life for that.
oh yeah. Let me ask this though. You said that you haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but did
Hmm.
you ever talk to him about like as an adult, talk to him after everything and try to get his viewpoint of what he went through, if he held some kind of
Hmm.
resentment or what so have you?
Yeah. We've discussed some things later on um, about some of the stuff that went on, and a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you now is kind of like he kind of confirmed it. You know what I mean? He told me, yeah, I know I was real hard on you kids. I did a lot of it to kind of protect you from the crazy like mental spells and psychosis of your mother and stuff like that. So a lot of it kind of helped me realize, because at the time when we talked about it, I knew some of it, but I didn't know all of it, and he kind of explained a lot of it to us, and a lot of stuff I talked about is kind of what he was telling us, kind of explaining it to us, and it lined up and made sense. You know what I mean? And I mean, granted, he could be blowing smoke. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if you knew my stepdad doesn't blow smoke to anybody ever. He's as honest and honorable and truthful as any man could ever be ever. So that's what makes me understand him a little bit more deeper and realize that what he said is true. He basically sacrificed. I would say probably of the 20 years he was married, probably 14 to 15 of those years, he sacrificed of his life just to ensure that he was there to
Right.
protect me, my brother, and my sister from our mother. So it's kind of one of those things. Nowadays, I forgive him. Um, Now the reason why we don't talk, I haven't talked to him in a few years. Should I reach out to him? Yes, I need to. Honestly, I haven't in about it's been about 4 years. Um, But one of the reasons why is because when I moved here, where I live now currently,
Hmm.
which is you know highly secure zone, nobody knows where I live.
Yes, that's
uh,
what it is.
You'd probably Google it, which is bad. But when we first moved here, um, I mean, I will say it was a highly secured area because I used my friends and influence to ensure that it was.
Hmm.
Um, it was for about, I would say, about 2 years, and somehow my mother, with all of her abilities and intelligence, because she's a very smart person, was able to find my address, and she got a hold of us. Um, and she mailed me all kinds of things. She mailed stuff to my daughter, and what she would do is she would put toys and stuff in a box, and she would label it like something else. You know what I mean? So we
Hmm.
would know, and we would open it. Like she essentially she found out my wife's mom's name, and she would label it like it came from her, right? As that's the return address or whatever. And she would label it to her daughter. Um, and she would, we'd go, oh, cool, and we'd go open it with her. And when in opening it, we'd figure out, there's a letter from my mom to my daughter, and of course, it's gonna spark my daughter, and she's gonna be like, oh, and we would have to like
Explain.
man, like you just I have to like take it from her and tell her no, you know what I mean? And shield block her from it. And now so she just started inciting that stuff, and that's one of the reasons why we got the injunctions. Um, and she came up, and we caught her following us one time, um, and a bunch of things happened. So then eventually I figured out where she got the information from. Well, I was, I invited a while back, and around that same time, um, I had invited my stepdad to come up and visit us and spend a weekend or week or whatever. He's retired now, so he just kind of sits at home and doesn't, he
Right.
mows the lawn and does, nonsense. So I invited him to come up. Said, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for your flight or your car or whatever you want to do, gas, whatever you got to do. You just come here, stay here, spend the time with the family.
Hmm.
My family get to know you. You know what I mean? Well, in the process, he was planning. He had taken, it's old fashioned. He was
Hmm.
an old man. He had taken my address and magneted it to the refrigerator. Well,
Right.
my sister, not on purpose and not in a bad way, um, had given my address to my mom. He said, hey, she doesn't realize it, because my sister, is like a full blown naive, even probably even to this day, 100% naive as to the situation and any of the incidences that happened over the years, any of the problems or issues that we all dealt with.
Right.
She was basically the one that was shielded the most. You know what I mean? And it was on purpose.
Right.
She's, I mean, she's like eight. I think she's 10 years younger than my brother and 8 years younger than me. So she's like the baby of the family. You know what I mean? So she was shielded like horrendous, like extremely, tremendously from all of this stuff. So she's 100% naive. So even to today, she's still that way. So when that happened, she thought I was just being an a-hole and being mean to my mom. So she was like, "Well, I'm just gonna," and she gave her my address, and that's how she got all that information. So
Hmm.
prior to that happening, I had told her, because my brother did the same thing probably about 5 years earlier. And
Hmm.
I told my brother, don't you do it. Don't you give my mom any information about me, so on and so forth. And he did, being naive as well. Um, so I blocked him. I shut him down, changed my number, changed all my information, and I've completely blocked him out of my life. And about 4 or 5 years later, I let him back in. Hey,
Yeah.
okay, you get it now, you see? And he was like, yeah, he figured it out. I told my sister, I said, you give my our mother any of my information, and me and you won't talk until I decide we can talk. And that's essentially what happened. And unfortunately, my stepdad has kind of taken, he kind of fell into that as kind of just not, just it is what it is. He's basically an innocent bystander of repercussions to my sister.
Right.
Essentially, she gave the information, but because the information came from him, it subsequently has to be like a byproduct. You know what I mean? And it's been
Understand.
4 years. You know what I mean? And she's in prison, so I should call
Yeah.
him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But let's do this. We've been kind of going on, and this is a topic we can definitely go through. Plus, as
Mm,
most people's probably hearing, I have my sixth son next to me, so I need to address a bit of that as well. If people want to find out or ask you more questions or get your feedback on, let's say, just this topic or even your foundation you have going, where do they
mm.
reach out to you to get that information?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, all the social media, True Social, X, which is Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Um, there is at Pancakes with Your Dad on pretty much all of them. X is the only one where it's at Pancakes WD or WY Dad. Pancakes WY Dad, because
Hmm.
X doesn't let you have a long name.
Right.
So, but all the rest are just at Pancakes with Your Dad, and you can Google it too. It's pretty Googleable. Just Google Pancakes with Your Dad. Um, That's the best way to find any of my social media. If you want to go to the website, just pancakeswithyourdad.com. You can definitely reach out to me, ask me any advice on this information. I'm happy to share, happy to help out and talk and explain a little bit more in detail about the stuff I went through. And if you're in a situation, I'm happy to help and talk about it. Um, the nonprofit is going. You can definitely make donations. Please make donations. Someone made a donation 2 days ago, and because they made a $200 donation, and because they made a $200 donation, I was able to use that $200. It was $199 that I used to purchase software to put into the website that now when you make a donation, you have a donor's profile, and you can download your taxable receipts and stuff like that, so you can take it to uh, your tax
Accountant.
guy at the end of the year and stuff like that. Um, and we can make better donation campaigns. We can connect it to stuff like that a little bit better. So that software was definitely helpful. That one person's donation made that much of a difference. So if you think your donation doesn't do anything, you think it's just going in my pocket, it's not true. 100%. That's why I registered it as a nonprofit, so it doesn't go into my pocket, and so I get that trust from you guys. That money, all of it, every single penny, goes into the foundation and into helping rebuild traditional American families. So with that, it's the long website is american-liberty-foundation.org. If you just want to Google it, you just type in American Liberty Foundation. It'll first one up on Google. There's also a secondary website. It just brings you right to that one. It's just traditionalsociety.com. It's just an easier version to remember. Just traditionalsociety.com. Um, and that one will take you there. There's a couple courses on there. There's if you go to our resources page, there's some resources and stuff. We're also on True Social, X, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. Just American Liberty Foundation. So
Perfect. And obviously, call with dads, callwithdads.com. We have, I think every place has call with dads. The only thing you have to watch out is some places pull up call her daddy, which is a very disgusting
yes.
thing. But yeah, call with dads. Go to callwithdads.com and you can find everything we have, and we'll be happy to talk with you if you have any questions, or you can reach out to either Mr. Pancakes, myself, or even Tom when Tom's on. You've heard of him a few times. So we do appreciate you being here. With that being said, thank you, everyone. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks. Bye.